The results of round one are here. We had a few close ones, but only half the states playing in round one will advance. Let's dive right in, shall we? In the West region, Utah and Colorado tied 3 times throughout the match. It was a brutal match. Ultimately, however, only Colorado will face Alaska in round 2. The gem state of Idaho started with a 4-0 run, but the equality state of Wyoming would have no equals and dominated the rest of the voting period. Washington cannot tell a lie. It cut down the New Mexico tree. Washington hopes its tournament bid is as evergreen as its trees when it faces Wyoming in round 2. Oregon had an early 3-1 run, but Arizona's second half offense sent Oregon back on the trail. Arizona will need to go full Geronimo when it says aloha to Hawaii in round 2. The Big Sky country of Montana snatched the silver right out of Nevada. Montana hopes it won't be best at last place when it faces California in round 2. In the Midwest region, Iowa had an interesting butter sculpture presentation, but the judges preferred Nebraska's more relevant arguments. Nebraska will face the Great Lakes state of Michigan in round 2. In the Ohio-Wisconsin battle for the Midwest, the judges selected, by a landslide, America's Dairyland, the Badger State, Wisconsin.
Yeah! Ohio State! Our rivers don't burn in Wisconsin! That's why we're the most beautiful state!
Wisconsin will face the Rough Rider state of North Dakota during round 2. Congratulations, you guys. The Show Me State showed Kansas the way home with Rock Chalk Get Lost. After throwing shade, Missouri will have Badlands ahead of them in South Dakota during round 2. Illinois, the land of Lincoln, sent the Hoosier State home. Illinois will have to deal with 10,000 lakes in Minnesota during round 2. In the Northeast region, Pennsylvania paralyzed the first state of Delaware, and it's a small wonder why the second state waited so long. Pennsylvania will have to deal with Maine's lobster mobsters in round 2. The ocean state of Rhode Island and the garden state of New Jersey duked it out in a battle for the ages. New Jersey led early with 4 votes to 1, then Rhode Island went on a 5-1 run. Rhode Island was either up by 1 or tied with Jersey. Ultimately, Rhode Island pulled ahead in this amazing contest to face Vermont in round 2. Massachusetts sent Connecticut to its suburban home in a decisive victory. The Bay State will face New York in round 2. As well, the Old Line state of Maryland and the Granite state of New Hampshire will face each other in round 2. In the South region, the Pelican state of Louisiana out-jazzed the natural state of Arkansas and will face the Sunshine state of Florida in round 2. In the Battle of the Virginias, Virginia and West Virginia both made convincing arguments. Ultimately, however, Virginia's versatility vaulted it to victory. In the Red River Showdown, Texas sent home Oklahoma sooner than they wanted. Looks like Austin will be keeping it weird this year. The Lone Star State will face Virginia in round 2. The South Carolina-Georgia match was one to watch. South Carolina led 3-1, but for the most part, every other vote switched. It looked like Georgia could win it, but in the end, only South Carolina would get to face Tennessee in round 2. North Carolina totally destroyed Mississippi, and you wonder if insurance covers what happened to Mississippi this round. Kentucky was like, "Run, Forrest, run!" And then Alabama roll tide their butt out of the tourney. Kentucky will face North Carolina in round 2. What did you think? Would you have voted differently for any of these matches? Leave a comment below, and as always, thank you for watching. The results of round 2 are here. We had a few close ones, but only half the states playing in round 2 will make it to round 3 for the Sweet 16. How about we get to it? In the West region, there's a lot to love about Alaska and Colorado. Both are great for outdoorsy people in search of an adventure. However, it was the last frontier that most captured the judges' hearts. The Inside Passage, Denali tons of national park land and millions of acres of unexplored territory gave Alaska the win 14-2. Washington and Wyoming both offer enriching national park experiences. Wyoming had to rely on only 2 national parks and vast prairie land, however. Washington offered a deeper roster of scenery, and it was the Evergreen State that would win 10-6. Washington, the state of Alaska Airlines, will face Alaska. Arizona's Grand Canyon may have helped it ward off Oregon, but that did not take with the judges. Hawaii won easily 15-1 over Arizona because, well, you try competing with tropical islands. While Montana certainly has a lot of beautiful scenery, especially Glacier National Park, California has Yosemite and plenty of other gems, and won 12-4. It will face Hawaii in round 3, and let me tell you, that's going to be a bloodbath. In the Midwest region, Nebraska was supposed to bring 5 players, but only 3, Chimney Rock, Scottsbluff, and Chadron, really bothered to show up. Michigan had Isle Royale, Mackinac, places to put lighthouses, and Midwestern surfing. So it's easy to see why the judges picked the Great Lakes state 12-4. Wisconsin offered its version of Cape Cod, Door County, and the fact that it even has a coastline. While North Dakota has its own set of badlands, Wisconsin easily badgered the prairies of North Dakota 11-5, which will have a rough ride home. Wisconsin will face Michigan's 2 peninsulas in the Sweet 16. The Show Me State apparently had not much left to show, as North Dakota's twin South Dakota will live for another day. Spectacular sunrises at the Badlands in the Black Hills gave South Dakota the win 12-4. Illinois had its own Garden of the Gods and Glimmering Lakeshore, but Minnesota's 10,000 Lakes helped give it a 12-4 win. Minnesota will face the neighboring state of South Dakota in the Sweet 16. In the Northeast region, in the Maine-Pennsylvania matchup, Maine's rugged coastline, lakes, mountains, and pine forests manhandled Pennsylvania 13-3. Maryland certainly has the Chesapeake Bay and its western mountains, but don't take the White Mountains of New Hampshire for granted. New Hampshire easily defeated Maryland 12-4 to qualify for the Sweet 16 matchup against Maine. Rhode Island's arguments were about as watered down as their chowder. Vermont's Green Mountains and fiery foliage easily shut out Rhode Island 16-0. This matchup is guaranteed to piss off at least one person. New York was simply too dominant to not cut off Massachusetts in traffic. New York has Niagara Falls, the Adirondacks, the Catskills, the Finger Lakes. Yeah, it's not just New York City. New York won 11-5 and will face Vermont in round 3. In the South region, Louisiana has its bayous, but Florida is the only state with both a tropical climate and a coral reef. This helped give Florida a 12-4 win. The Virginia-Texas match was one to watch. Virginia started with a 3-1 run, Texas rallied to lead 4-3, then Virginia came back to lead 5-4, then Texas tied it at 5-5. But then, Virginia ended with a 4-2 run to win 9-7. It will face Florida in the Sweet 16. The Tennessee-South Carolina match was another exciting contest. Tennessee volunteered its half of the Smoky Mountains. South Carolina offered views from its upstate mountains down to its beaches. Ultimately, however, it was Tennessee that won the match 10-6. The dynamic Tar Heel state of North Carolina knocked out the Bluegrass state Kentucky 13-3 and will face Tennessee in the Sweet 16. What did you think? Would you have voted differently in any of these matches? Leave a comment below, and as always, thanks for watching. The results of round 3 are here. Wow, a lot of exciting matches, including one overtime match. It's pretty much assured that whichever state loses the Hawaii-California match will be in the play for one of the 2 wildcard spots. That is, the 2 states that did not win a regional final, but most deserve an honorable mention. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. First off, in the West region, Washington tried to make its case, but Alaska was simply too dominant, and the 49th state once again won 14-2. Alaska will face the winner of the Hawaii-California match in the West Final. The Hawaii-California match was the best match of all, so good that we're saving it for last. In the Midwest region, Michigan has access to 4 of the Great Lakes, Wisconsin only 2. This still ended up being a highly competitive match. Wisconsin started with a 7-3 lead, and it was looking like it had it in the bag. However, everything that Michigan needed to happen happened, as it went on a 6-0 run to close the match and qualify for the Midwest Regional. South Dakota faced a more formidable foe in Minnesota, but ultimately won 10-6, and the score looks closer than the match really even was. South Dakota will face Michigan in the Midwest Final. In the Northeast region, Maine sent out its lobsters to clop the competition in New Hampshire and won 12-4. New York had brute power due to its sheer size and talent pool, but Vermont played with passion and finesse that only a more beautiful state could possess. Vermont vanquished New York 13-3. It will face Maine in the Northeast Final. In the South region, At halftime, Virginia and Florida were tied at 4-4, but Florida went on a 7-1 run to win the match 11-5. Tennessee tried to tar the heels of North Carolina, but North Carolina would not be stopped on its way to the Elite Eight, winning 11-5. North Carolina will face Florida in the South Final. Now back to the Hawaii-California matchup. Throughout the voting period, the two states tied 6 times, and the lead frequently changed, making this the most exciting match of the round and of the entire tournament so far. As predicted, this truly was a bloodbath. California led off 1-0, then 1-all. Hawaii 2-1, then tied at 2. Hawaii 3-2, then tied at 3. California 5-3, then tied at 5. Hawaii 6-5, then tied at 6. Hawaii 8-6. Then California scored 2 judges before the buzzer to make it 8-all and throw the match into overtime. A judge was designated to break the tie. Having picked the eventual winner of 7 of the 7 other matches, the honorable judge from Texas broke the tie. She ended up selecting the great state of California to face Alaska in the West Final. Hawaii will continue to be in contention for the wild card race. What did you think? Would you have voted differently in any of these matches? For example, would you have voted for California or Hawaii? Leave a comment below, and as always, thanks for watching. The results of round 4 through 6 of the most beautiful state tournament are here.
Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, and I beheld a lot of beauty last year as I visited every county and county equivalent in the US in 236 days. How did we as a group end up picking these 4?
In the West Final, Alaska and California faced off. In other situations, California might have the upper hand, but with our group of judges, Alaska won 10-6. In the Midwest Final, Michigan and South Dakota were tied at the end of regulation, so Hugh Donovan of New Hampshire was designated to break the tie, and he cast his tie-breaking vote for the state of Michigan.
Michigan comes in at number 9 in most coastline.
Michigan will face off against Alaska in the Final 4. In the Northeast Final, Maine and Vermont faced off, but it was Maine that would have the upper hand and won 11-5.
Maine has the 4th most coastline when the NOAA method is used, which includes tidal areas and Great Lake frontage.
In the South Final, Florida and North Carolina were also tied at the end of regulation 8-8. So it was once again Hugh Donovan who cast a tie-breaking vote, and this time he cast his vote for the state of Florida.
Florida baffles me, one judge lamented. What Florida does have in abundance is coastline. In fact, it has the 2nd most coastline, with only Alaska, of course, having more.
Florida will face off against Maine in the Final 4.
All 4 have the most coastline in their regional bracket. The Final 4 are not baffling if you ascribe to the "it's in the water" theory.
Round 5, the Final 4. Alaska and Michigan faced off, but Michigan never really had much of a chance as Alaska was simply too dominant and won 15-1. Maine faced off against Florida, and Maine sneaked by and won 11-5. Round 6 results: 1st place, 3rd place, and wild cards. And the wild card picks were California and Hawaii. In the 3rd place match, Michigan won 9-7. In the 1st place match, Alaska beat Maine decisively 15-1. Here to explain his choice is Judge Hugh Donovan of New Hampshire.
Alaska has both coastline and mountains in abundance and was the Goliath against 49 Davids. The highlight of my trip last year was the 18 days I spent in Alaska. Just look at the pictures I took to understand the diversity, and I saw so much natural beauty that the outcome for me was a foregone conclusion. Mountains and water, yes, but also glaciers, a beautiful silt-covered river, and tundra. Participating in this competition a year after my trip brought it all back to life for me. Thank you, John.
What did you think? Would you have voted differently in any of these matches? Leave a comment below, and as always, thanks for watching.